Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans all over this world. I tell you what, it's been a marathon today, an absolute marathon. I'm cream crackered, Des. Cream crackered, knackered.
Well, I don't know what you're moaning about. I've had a lovely day. What are you on about?
What? I bet you have.
True, Alex.
Yeah. What you been? What you been doing? Have you been cutting your nails again? No, you've had a busy day.
Put him in nails.
You have had a busy day. I will agree with that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Des. A little bit of sympathy. And like bottom left-hand corner is like a little bit misty, a little bit dark, as if the original Godfather's been interrogating someone. But you know what? This is the 71 anniversary, 50th anniversary, double winner side. I didn't do my homework. Which is why we've got the original Godfather himself to kind of give us some anecdotes as well as some stories, as well as all the other lovely faces right here on this wonderful channel. See the other side of this music intro. Didn't do my homework. I can see everyone shaking their heads. Alex didn't do his homework. Just some things just never change, do they?
I've wasted 2 hours of my life that I can't get back.
I'm sorry, Des.
I'm only joking. I enjoyed it.
Guys, make sure you subscribe. Hit the bell notification button so you can receive all the latest news right here on Cannon Fodder TV. Right, people. So it's a special one here. Like I said, we've got the blessing of Julie Armstrong. Julie Armstrong's her daughter. She wasn't unable to make it, and I think she felt a little bit overwhelmed. She's been requested on other podcasts and other special editions, and but she has given us her blessing, and I hope we can do Julie Armstrong some justice. You're probably thinking, Cannon Fodder? What's that then? Cannon Fodder? Jordy, we'll do our best, mate. We'll do our best.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Godfather, good evening to you. How are you doing?
Well, you're getting my mind going on some funny stories that happened this time 50 years ago. First of all, of course, the win at Tottenham to clinch the league on Monday night. And then, of course, on the Saturday, the going a goal behind in extra time, and then the winning goal scored by an Islington boy. So these are magical memories. There he is, Charlie George on the ground. John Radford, the guy with his sort of head up in the air, was our captain, Frank McClintock. Yes. And a friend of mine reminded me of a funny story, which I no doubt I'm gonna be sharing with you. On the match on the Monday at Tottenham, Frank was speaking to a friend of mine and said that he was sort of running along, and he didn't spot the ref, and he bumped into the ref, and he was running at full pelt, and he actually knocked the ref flying, and the ref collapsed onto the ground in a heap and had to be revived. And when my mate was telling me this, I said, "Oh yes." In the euphoria of winning the title at Tottenham, I'd forgotten that. And then I went, yeah, he did. He bumped into the ref, and the ref wasn't expecting it and went flying and didn't know where he was for a while.
Enforcer, welcome back on Cannon Fodder, man. How you doing, man? You okay?
I'm good, man. Thank you very much for having me back. I love it when I'm here. It's just so much fun. We have a good laugh. We talk seriously as well, like we did last night, Alex. There's a time and a place for everything. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I like about this community. And we can speak openly and frankly. And 50 years ago, I was -2. You know what I mean? And I'm just wondering as well, has anyone told Tell that the war's over? Yeah. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Which war?
Take your pick, mate. Take your pick. I just wanted to say something. I have watched the match, and I have looked at the team and everything. And the captain got rid of his bad juju, because he had lost 4 times in a row, and he actually finally won it, you know. So I was really pleased for him. I was absolutely happy that being a Scotsman, even with a London accent, right? I am a Scotsman, and there was 4 Scotsmen in the team that day, which I'm quite proud of. But I also didn't know, back in 1971, this was quite surprising to me, they only had 1 sub.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you had 1 sub today? We'd be absolutely destroyed. The way we get injured.
As you say that, but I think even before then, there was at some point where no subs were allowed. I think maybe in
That's right.
the 60s.
Really?
You had no
I
subs.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
So,
No
yeah,
subs.
yeah.
Oh
So if you
my
got
God.
injured, that was it. You were finished. You were finished.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think this is going to be absolutely an interesting podcast, and I think it's time to let Raz talk about his favourite player.
Thanks for the segment there, Des. Yeah,
Great
it's Charlie
segue,
George.
mate.
It's Charlie George. I recounted on previous podcasts that the street that we lived in, Richmond Avenue, it was a lovely community. When you're a kid, you don't really take those kind of things in. But the day of the match, I was playing on the grass lawn at the front, and there's not many grass lawns at the front of some of the properties there at that time. I was happy playing, and I looked around me, and I noticed that there was yellow and blue bunting going across the pub, which a friend of mine had owned. His parents owned this pub, and there's some yellow and blue bunting across some of the buildings as well. And I was thinking, what's going on? You know, it didn't really occur to me. It was only when later in the day, if anyone will remember the FA Cup, it was an all-day affair. You see both teams in the hotel. You see how they made their journeys to the final, and you know, everyone commented on, you know, their best players, their favorite players, and everything else. And my mum and she had the wager of my dad, our dad, and she said, you know, put your hands up if you think Arsenal's going to win. Well, I put my hand up. Straight thing. I didn't want to. I put my hand up, and my dad was just saying, "Oh, look, Arsenal's not going to win. Liverpool's going to win." Liverpool was his team, but he did follow Arsenal as well. But Liverpool, he liked Toshak, he liked Keegan. Keegan came after then, but Keegan, Callahan, Emlyn Hughes, he liked them, and he followed them. But that day, I put my hand up, and it led me to where we are now. I've been in love with this team ever since. Yeah, despite all the knocks and the blows and the banter and stuff, you have to carry yourself up. But that day, it was a sunny day. Of course, when I looked at it again this morning, beautiful, April, May. I think it was May final. It was beautiful weather. It was hot. Every team that ever played at Wembley during that period of time, they mainly suffered through heat exhaustion because the pitch was, as lush as it was, it takes a lot out of you. You do absorb a lot of heat, and you're pushing yourself. And what I noticed as well, every time Arsenal had the ball, they played forwards. There was no going side to side, ticky-tacky or anything. They went in against Liverpool, and Liverpool, to their credit, did the same thing to us as well. In fact, in the first 2 minutes, Arsenal had conceded four free kicks around the box. Now, if we did that now, we'd be literally up in arms. But the thing with the team then, they were just so resilient, and look at the play and everything. It was amazing. But yeah, for me, this lad who thought that Arsenal at the bottom of his street, because it was such a fantastic experience that day. And I even remember watching Match of the Day at the end in the night time, just to relive the experience. And I'm in love with them. I'm in love with my team. So Charlie George, I was very thanks to Alex and Alex's wife Sorelli. We went to the Emirates, and Charlie George actually gave the tour. So to be linked in with Charlie George, my hero, I call him my hero. I'm forever grateful.
That must have been amazing. That must have been amazing, Raz.
It was. It really was. I still got the photos and everything. So yeah.
Tel, so we'll go back to you, Tel. You know, any other anecdotes or stories you want to tell us about? Because
I've got 1,000 of them. I was just thinking while Raz was chatting there. I mean, I don't know where you want me to start. We'll start with Charlie George. I was talking to a friend of mine who was a few years older than me about Arsenal, and she's a big Arsenal fan. And she said, "You know, I used to go out with Charlie George." I said, "Did you?" I said, "Because I lived in the flats, and his second cousins lived really near me, but they didn't speak to Charlie's side of the family. Some little thing going on." Everybody knew of Charlie George and all. Anyway, yes, I'll just call her Pat. Her name's Pat. And she said, yeah, she said, we were about 14 or 15, you know, we're going out together, going to the pictures or the cinema, as it's called now. And he said to her, Pat, I can't see you for our date next week. And she said, why not, Charlie? He said, I've got training. And she said, training? What, are you training to be a soldier? He said, no. He said, I train for Arsenal. I'm down at the Arsenal training. And she went, oh, God, you know, I didn't know. She said, well, I don't know. I'll keep it quiet, I suppose. So that's the first story of Charlie. And I think if people are watching, and many will not know too much about the sort of double team, to really, if you're going to get serious and you really want to understand it, then you've got to look at the history of how that team was built, because it was a bit like you bake a cake. It had a series of ingredients. So first of all, the team had experienced either personally or as a whole team, you know, all kinds of defeats. So, for instance, as you mentioned earlier, Frank McClintock had lost 3 cup finals at Wembley. And the one I remember, I was very little, was he played for Leicester against Spurs, and he lost there. And then Arsenal signed him as what they called a wing back at the time, which is like a defensive midfielder. And then by the time of the 71 final, he'd been converted, although he's only 5'9.5", he's very short centre back, he'd be converted into a centre back. But what people need to understand is that in the years leading up to the 71 final, we had a series of situations that we either won or lost, but it was character building. And the first would be the League Cup final against Leeds. And we got through. We just signed Bob Nab from Huddersfield, and he was the left back in the final. And this would have been in '68. And we were beaten. We will always say it was a foul on our goalkeeper, Jim Fennell, by Jack Charlton. But Terry Cooper, the fullback, rifled it into the net. And so the team lost that. They were heartbroken. But the following season, same League Cup competition, we got to the semi-final, and it was a home and away, and we were playing Tottenham. Oh, my goodness. Phenomenal excitement. I remember going to sort of both matches, both at Highbury and at Spurs, and Arsenal got through. It was just fantastic excitement, and we were due to play Swindon Town in the 3rd division. And having beaten Tottenham over 2 legs in the semi-final, we thought it was a shoo-in to win the final. What a disaster. Flu went through the Arsenal camp. They had the Horse of the Year show at Wembley, which churned up the field. And Swindon scored an early goal. And we battered them, absolutely battered them. Their goalkeeper, Peter Downsborough, I met a fellow on a beach in Tenerife years later who was the substitute goalkeeper. And he said he'd never seen Downsborough play so well. And funny enough, I've been in contact with Bobby Gould, who scored the Arsenal equaliser that day. Lovely fella, really wonderful fella. I've got so much in favour of him, not just as a footballer, but as a person. And so we managed to get back into the game, and then it went to extra time, and then our legs went, and we lost 3-1. So you had 2 disasters, one after the other. And then the next year, we got through to the European Fairs Cup final. And we played Anderlecht away, and we were 3-0 down. One of our youth players, Ray Kennedy, came on and scored what we thought at the time was just a goal that wouldn't have great meaning, a consolation goal. But we knew we had to win big time at Highbury. It was either going to be 2-0 and the away goal counted double, or beyond that. And we did manage to sort of win that one, and I was there also. And that was just amazing. It was on the pitch, and I was talking to George Armstrong, and I took a piece of the pitch home. I've no idea what happened to it, but everybody was on the pitch. But you see, that team, the team by this time, they were only a year away from the famous double. The team had started taking shape. These are players that had lost 2 finals, one after the other, and they were hurting. And there was, as Les was saying, there were a lot of Scots lads in the team, and they were hurting badly. So when we got through to the final a year later, I mean, if you look at that team, you've got Bob McNabb, who we bought from the lower leagues. We've got Peter Story, who was our midfield destroyer, and he came through the youth team. So did Bob Wilson. Peter Simpson, our centre back, he came through the youth team. So did George Armstrong. George Graham was a swap deal with our forward Tommy Baldwin, and George was a wonderful centre forward. Eddie Kelly, Scots lad, he came down from Postle Park in Glasgow, kind of a youth player. We bought Frank, as I said. Pat Rice, again a youth team player. John Radford, youth team player, and so on. So the team that kind of went out there were mostly a bit like our young players now, and this is why this is relevant if people are listening. The team, the strength of the team was mostly in young lads who'd come through the youth setup and the reserves, and a lot of people like me would go to the reserve games. They were either free or very cheap, and you'd see some cracking matches. So we'd seen these guys come through. I'd seen Charlie George come through, and when he first played for the youth team, he used to have what you'd nowadays call a skinhead haircut, really short hair, and he got well known a year or two later for his long flowing locks. So if you want to understand how that team was so strong, would refuse to accept defeat, then you have to know all the terrible, heartbreaking defeats they've gone through beforehand. And then that puts into context why they never gave up when they were going for the league in '71. And even in the final, remember, they went a goal down after at the start of extra time. And everybody thought, well, we've played unlike Liverpool, we played on the previous Monday, and where our legs going to go? And luckily, they sort of didn't. And then Eddie Kelly, everybody thought it was George Graham. So if you watch a video of the match, you see George Graham wheel away with his arm in the air, but they now think it was Eddie Kelly who scored the first goal. And I've got a funny story to tell you about Eddie Kelly that you won't read anywhere else. And it involves a girlfriend of mine, but that's just, I'll tell you that story later. And then, of course, Charlie George had already once before, he'd done something like that where he'd shot and then collapsed on the ground. So it was his trademark. But it was I didn't go to the final. I was in my dad had a dance band, and we had to play a wedding somewhere. So I remember watching the first half in this, the drummer in the band had a lovely house out in North Mims, and he had a big telly. And I remember watching the first half on the telly, and no car radios in those days. So I had a little transistor radio when my dad was driving to the gig. And then I heard Arsenal win it that way. So, and then of course the following day was unbelievable. Islington, I think there were something like 200,000 people in Islington the following day. And I went to, you might know, well, Alex and Raswell, the Orwin Castle. You know that pub, nearest pub to our school. Yeah. And I stood there with my parents, and we waved the team on, and it was just a fantastic day. And but what makes all this relevant is that it gives you a template for how we might get out of the hole that our current team is in, because everybody now knows that it's the young players that are actually shaming up the more mature, the very expensive players. And I think that is the way forward. We've got to keep. Emile Smith-Rowe was apparently the last Arsenal player off the pitch on Thursday. Absolute heartbreak for him. I thought he played really, really well. But it's in the white heat of defeat that passion to win, that indomitable spirit comes through. And I think we've got big hopes. I know there's all kinds of conjecture about if Arteta is going to still be riding on the Arsenal donkey, if you want to call it that, in 6 months' time. But you know, it's not a disaster to be out of Europe. The last time we were out of Europe 25 years ago, Bruce Rioch went out and bought Dennis Bergkamp. So there's lots of things happening. We might have a new owner pretty soon. And I would say to anybody that wants to look back at the footage of the cup final, fantastic. You will see really committed lads, some local lads in there. Islington. They all lived in North London. They, you know, people who lived up in Southgate knew them well, and Winchmore Hill. And one final story to make people laugh. We used to, during half terms, we used to go up to Finsbury Park when I was a kid, and there's a Barclays Bank on the corner, and no kind of home banking in those days or online banking. The players used to walk up from the stadium from training on a Friday morning, and at lunchtime they go into Barclays Bank, deposit their checks, and then there was a Wimpy bar around the corner, which was that you don't really get Wimpy bars much now, but it was like a precursor of a rundown McDonald's type place, and that, but with knives and forks. And they go into the Wimpy bar at Finsbury Park, and we'd waylay them and get autographs and so on. And they'd go into the Wimpy bar in Finsbury Park. It's all glass, and we'd all be outside ruin their time to eat. But so the players were part of the community, and the community was part of the club. And maybe those days won't happen again, but it's nice that Arsenal stayed in Islington, and even if they're going to be in LA in 10 years' time.
But, you know, 71, I was around, 5, 6 years of age, so I don't remember anything at all, apart from when summers were summers and winters were winters. Now, Tell's mentioned, literally, it kind of feeds into how Arsenal are at present. And one person who I wanted to actually talk about was this person right here, Frank McIntosh. That was one thing. The other thing is as well, I'm thinking we don't have the nucleus, the Celtic. So I know, you know, the Celtic.
Yeah.
It was spoken about, you know, the Irish contingent, the Brady's, but we don't have that nucleus anymore, Des.
No, we don't. We don't. And there are some great Scottish players, you know, in the history of Arsenal. And just want to say, Wimpy did better burgers than McDonald's any day. I can remember them when I was a kid. Bob Wilson, when I watched the match last night, Bob Wilson amazed me. He's the goalkeeper with no gloves on his hands.
Yeah.
And the thing is, right, you've got to remember as well, look at Charlie George, the goal he scored outside the 18-yard box. The ball compared to today would have been a brick. Yeah, the ball they play with today is a beach ball compared to what these lads were kicking around. And I just wanted to say as well, right, I'd have McClintock as captain today any day of the week. And I would say this as well. The football they played in that match in front of 100,000 people was end to end, non-stop in that heat. How many teams can say they play like that today? They don't. Yeah. They don't. They want air conditioning and pampered, and these were lads that go out and do, you know, they would play for 90 minutes. And all right, these guys had to do extra time, and they did it, you know. And I know all the goals were scored in extra time, but I was sitting there last night thinking, this is a match and a half. You know what I mean? I would have been proud to be in that crowd to go and watch that game if I was alive, you know, and of the right age. I would have been shouting my lungs out. And I tell you, what made it even sweeter was they won at White Hart Lane. Was it 5 days or 6 days before? So it makes it even sweeter, you know. But if you do compare it to today's game, yeah, they shadow these guys that play today. As I said, they're too pampered and we want it easy, and we've got to have football boots that make the ball go 50,000 yards and bend at the end or whatever. Do you know? I mean, I know I'm exaggerating in what I'm saying, but you know, these boys were playing with a brick with laces, and you know, their boots, their studs would have been, well, they wouldn't have been able to twist them off. I would have thought they'd have been all one piece of the boot, you know? So it just shows how skillful these guys actually were. And Charlie George has got to take some credit. I've got to be honest with you, because when he belted that ball from outside, I think he had 2 or 3 attempts from outside the 18-yard box.
Yeah, two attempts. I had a look now. He had 2 attempps, and the first one, Clements had to jump to make sure, just in case, you know.
He did,
but like, you know, shots outside the box. The way that both teams, to their credit, both teams attacked, and the tackles. There's one tackle that Ray Clements that was almost a scramble. In today's game, it would have been a penalty.
Yeah. Because someone clattered into Clements as well, didn't they? At one point,
Simpson clattered into Clements because he got the ball, but it was a fair challenge.
But that would have been a penalty. That would have been a penalty today as well, wouldn't it? Or a sending off or whatever.
It would have been a yellow card. It would have been a yellow card.
Would you think so?
It would have, in today's football, it would have been a yellow card.
Okay.
Because
I'll take
because the contact. I know we've talked a lot this season about VAR and the way VAR has gone against us. And I also try and do like a similarity with rugby. Rugby is full contact with a ball. But if the player is in the air and you have to allow him to land on the ground and tackle him. A few years back, he was able to tackle him mid-air. Because of the collision and head injuries as well, they've ruled that out. So you have to wait for the person who goes up in the air to catch the ball. You have to allow him time to land, and then you tackle him. It's a discipline. The football back then, it was all about, I want to get the ball, I'm going to lay it off, I'm going into space to attack. There may have been some tactical awareness, of course, but that team, like you mentioned earlier, the nucleus of the team, you know, was Scottish. So they were very hardened. And when you've had a player who's gone to about three finals and he's lost 2 of them, then that's a mentality. You have to think, you know what, I'm not going to let this happen again. And again, what Eltel mentioned as well is the fact that what we implore our viewers, our subscribers, the younger generation, I say the younger generation, is to look back at these, because the information is there now. There's no real excuse to get educated on the history of the club. And you see the way that where we've come from to where we are. And most of it has always been about the youth, you know, mixing with the right amount of experienced players.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to expand on your point there, Raz, because end of the day, what you just said is absolutely true. As I say, when this game was played, I was -2. Do you know what I mean? So I've gone out there and I found out about it, and I'm impressed by what I've found. You know, I mean, I noticed as well in the midfield, Bobby George was doing some lovely 1-2 passing, as you say, Raz. He was 1-2 passing and going.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the whole emphasis was let's get at these guys, let's attack them, because we don't know how long we're going to last. But like for example, boxers, they used to back in the 60s and 70s, going 15 rounds was the norm. You know what I mean? It was the norm going 15 rounds. These days now, with a lot, I know that football has to move forward. There's technology as well. The boots, the match that we played against, I think we played Villarreal, the first leg, players were falling over. It's something that our dad used to say. He used to say, these players don't seem to be playing with the right boots because they're falling over, but they've got more choice of boots. Yeah. So surely someone would have been, you know, the kit man. I'll give you one example. One of the guys I used to go to school with, primary school, his name's Ian Snook. So wherever he is in the world, I hope you're happy and you're blessed and everything else. He had trials at Arsenal, and I caught up with him just by chance, and he said, "Ralph, you know what they do? Well, I'm a trainee. When we go in, we train, but we got to polish all the boots. We got to clean the showers. We got to make sure that the kits are handed in and they're washed, and everything's all pressed and it's there for match time." That's a trainee who wants to play for the first team, and it wasn't unheard of for a lot of trainees to go in to learn their craft, but they had to do the grime end. They had to clean the boots. They had to clean the showers, the toilets, everything else, because it built character. Now, you tell me what other players of this generation, or maybe a few generations back, would think, you know what, I want to play for that team. I'm willing to do anything to play for that team. Oh, you know what, hey, hi, Mbappe, we're going to give you the toilets to clean. What do you think he's going to say? What do you think Neymar
Doris,
would?
come here, Doris. That's what he's going to say. That's what he's going to say, Raz. Doris, toilets need cleaning, love. Come on. That's what he did. But I know what you're saying, though.
Can I just say, it's not. I think Des said Bobby George there. I think Bobby George is a darts player, is he?
You know, I said Charlie George.
No, you said Bobby. But do you know what? I take Bobby. No, I think as well.
I meant Charlie George. I meant Charlie George. Sorry.
I know. I think people have to bear in mind that these players were not on great money, and which is why they had testimonials. So they played because they had a passion to play the game. They played it because they had a passion to play, you know, what we call top level football, and it wasn't just about money. So the testimonial was to help them get through the rest of their lives. Now, I mean, there's no way any of the first teamers at Arsenal need a testimonial, because one year's salary sets them up for life. So unfortunately, you know, as all of us know, the moment money comes into the game, something's lost, and then it's very, whereas if you play for a lesser known club, sometimes it gives you more passion because you want to be famous. So maybe that's why Leicester do so well, because they're an unfashionable club and they seem to be punching above their sort of weight, you know. But unfortunately, a lot of the players we've got now, and we can see it, it's in the highly paid players. They seem to think they've suddenly arrived, which they sort of have arrived, and then their form goes off. So unfortunately, we can't turn back the clock. But certainly, money doesn't help. It doesn't help produce a better spectacle. And it's a real shame that our younger players, who are only earning a fraction, they're only earning a fraction of some of the senior players, and yet are outperforming them. And I have heard a rumour that the dressing room isn't very happy because these young kids are showing up the sort of older heads who are drawing phenomenal salaries.
But Eltel, sorry, just to jump in, just to hopefully finish Eltel's point. Don't you think that if you're a professional and you've got a young upstart, as it were, right? Don't you think that if you're a professional, that would raise your game, because you wouldn't want to be the one found wanting, as it were? You know, if you're bringing your A game every week, it makes it you know, that's the standard. And of course, there's always going to be the young unserved person who wants to come in and eventually they will take your place, because that's the way it's got to go. It's got to be. But if you're a professional and you're putting it in every week, then that really shouldn't really bother you, because one is it's going to make the team stronger, and two, you know that your time is going to be up, so you want to make sure that you leave it in the best place. So when a youngster does come in, you can actually take him under your wing. You can say, right, this is the way that we do things here. I know that you want to get in. I know that you're passionate and everything, but this is the way we're going to do it. And I want to make sure that when I leave it and you take over, then you put your stamp on it, and the standards don't drop, because that's where we are. That's who we are.
Well, funny enough, you should say that. I mean, Arsene Wenger has said what all the great players play for the sort of glory of being the very best they can be. And we've had a history, most recently, of Arsenal players who, when they get a massive salary raise, their standard drops off because they're not really playing to be the sort of world's best. And yet, if you look at the world's best, they would. I mean, the famous story of Ian Wright was because he'd come to the game late in his early 20s. He started playing for Palace. He'd worked on building sites, and he knew what it meant to have to get up at 4 and 5 in the morning, trudge off in cold weather, rain, snow, and he knew that he had a big chance with Palace and then Arsenal. So, and I think he said to Wenger, I don't mind, you know, when it came to look at the contracts, he just said, I don't mind what you're paying me, I'll sign, and you can put anything on the contract, because he knew he had a chance that people in his position in life wouldn't often have. And Wenger mentioned Dennis Bergkamp. Bergkamp had obviously made some money playing in Italy, but he wasn't playing for the money. He was playing because he loved the game, he loved representing Arsenal, and he loved representing his national team. And some of our older heads in the team do still do that. But others who are on enormous salaries are either not as good as they think they are, or have dropped because they suddenly realise they are incredibly rich.
Let me go to the live chat and see who has joined us on this one. We've got Kent, who is a Liverpool supporter. Good evening, Kent. Long while. Hope you're keeping well. Say hello to the family from us, please. And there's his brother from another mother. Says, "How is it, Kent? How's it, Kent? Hi, Colin.
They're having a private."
Yeah. Great put it from Man City. What are you talking? Stay on task, Kent. We're talking about your team. I'm driving the game. A future son-in-law is in town for a college game. I'm watching now. Right, okay. There are more important things than just watching a podcast. I was just over half a year old when the Gunners doubled, but my generation always learned the history of the teams they liked. Hopefully, our young fans take something in today. Hopefully. I'm not actually sure. I think my makeup, my makeup, the subscribers who watch Cannon Fodder, I think it's kind of top heavy. I think they're more of our age, not so much of the young generation who watch Cannon Fodder TV, which doesn't say much for me.
But it'd be interesting to find out. It'd be interesting to find out that kind of demographic, because
I do from time to time. Yeah, it's the percentage it's probably like 0.2%. You know, I think from like 13 to 19, and it literally is like middle-aged, like I'm middle-aged and upwards. But
well, I must say, Alex, most of my children watch it, so that should give you about another 10 people.
Okay.
Yeah, actually,
Tell, you should have got a telly sooner. You should have got a telly sooner, Tell. Blooming heck.
I'll tell you what's worth saying though, and Des said this earlier. Back in the 60s and 70s, there were some wonderful Scottish players. They were well known as being what's known as touch players. George Graham, I must say, in this era, was probably my favourite player. He was originally a centre forward, and he could hang in the air and beat any centre back, even though he was a shade under 6 foot. They then converted him into a midfielder as he lost pace, and he had a wonderful touch. And I saw the best goal I've ever seen an Arsenal player score was the George Graham goal. It was against Wolves, and it was on an Easter Monday. And the ball came to him on the edge of the area, and he had his back to the Wolves goal, and he did an overhead bicycle kick into the roof of the Wolves net. And I've never seen a goal like it since. Absolutely fantastic goal. But then as well in the final, you had some Scots lads on the Liverpool team. And when you see Frank McClintock shaking hands, he's shaking hands with Tommy Smith. And Tommy Smith was a serious man. So there were some great players.
Charles Bronson. He had that kind of look of Charles Bronson. He looked he was a hard guy. He was a very hard guy. Just looking at him now. And our dad, he loved Emlyn Hughes. But I think he loved him because of that Question of Sports. He was the captain of Question of Sport many years back as well.
He was, yeah.
So,
Alex, I just wanted to say, right, for me, Eddie Kelly scored the goal, not George Graham. No disrespect to George Graham, but for me, Eddie Kelly scored the goal. But I do want to know why Mr. Highway, how did he score that goal? What an angle. No disrespect to Mr. Wilson. What an angle he scored from there. Do you know what I mean? And you're thinking, flipping heck.
And no goalkeeper should be beaten on their near post. But listen, I'm going to launch into my Eddie Kelly story, lads. You ready?
Hey.
Scots lad. I was doing a gig in a band a few years later on the Holloway Road. And there was some sort of presentation, the sports club. It wasn't Arsenal, but there was a presentation. And they'd asked Eddie Kelly to come along and do the presentation. And the pub at the time, I'm pretty sure it was called the Prince of Wales. And then it became the Herbert Chapman and the Sir Walter Scott. So it's changed its name a few times. But anyway, I was playing in the band and we had a girl singer and very nice lady too. And she and I were sort of boyfriend and girlfriend. And then during the break, because Eddie Kelly came up, I must have given him the mic and he spoke on the mic and gave everybody, gave whatever awards were being given out and medals and so on. And then when I looked down during the break, he's at the bar chatting my girlfriend up. And I thought, no. I mean, listen, I know we're all Arsenal here, but Eddie, no way. I didn't say anything to him, but so Eddie Kelly tried to nick my girlfriend. That should be on the headline news.
Oh dear, let's go back into the for the last time. And there it is, young fans. Our glory was almost always built from our youth system. There's a lesson to be learned there. Thank you, Artel. That's from Colin. Wanola says, I remember the frozen footballs at school was like kicking a rock. Yeah, goodness, man.
Can I just tell this quick story, which people might not have heard before? I know I told it on one broadcast a while ago. I was speaking to a very good friend of mine who knew all the Arsenal players in that double team very well, and I've met Pat Rice twice actually. Once on the steps of the old Highbury Stadium when my dad and I went. I was a kid at school, and he said it was half term. And my dad met me, and we went in the players' restaurant, very posh place, but we couldn't find it. And Pat Rice was coming out of the stadium. This would be around about 1970, 71. And he directed us to the place. And then the second time I met Pat Rice was last season. And I'm walking along, and he's walking along himself. And at the time, I think it was within a day or two of them getting rid of Unai Emery, and he looked like he was marching up with a couple of heavies with him to have some kind of meeting. Obviously, a lot of the people who were in control were very concerned with our results. And he walked right up to me, and I thought, well, I can't not say something. So I put my hand out and said, "Hiya, Pat." And he said, "Hiya, how's it going?" I said, "Fine, thanks." So but that was the joy of living near Arsenal as well, because you'd walk past one day and the players would come out. You'd hear this clitter clatter of their studs, and they'd be kind of coming out of training and they'd walk along Avenel Road and so on. So yeah, Pat Rice.
I think there's a big
oh yeah, sorry, I hadn't finished the story. The story goes that the story goes that apparently when they went into extra time, sorry, Alex, I knew I'd started that story for some reason. The story I was told recently was because it went into extra time, and we said the players didn't look as though they were struggling, but they actually were struggling. And at the end of the match, Arsenal won. They went round with the cup and so on. And when they got back into the dressing room, Pat Rice, who had problems his entire career with his feet swelling, he couldn't get his boots off. And the players all loosened the lace and were pulling at his boot. And in the end, the trainer came out with a big pair of scissors and had to cut his boots off him. So that's the famous Pat Rice story.
Oh, goodness. Wow. Okay, just a quick heads up. There's just some other bits and pieces of news, kind of going off track. There's going to be a limited edition of T-shirts being made, and I can't wait. Can't wait. There's I'm fired up, mate.
He's put it on the YouTube, Sam. Hey! I'm going to design. Tell, I've got your design sorted out already. I've got Raz's design sorted out already, and I've got Alex's design sorted out already. So they'll be coming in the next couple of days.
Well, do you know, I was thinking about that. Once we get back to the stadium, it'd be good if this got really popular. And then loads of young kids said, "Oh, I'm getting that Enforcer one," and you'd have about 30 of them all walking in. The Enforcer.
That would be brilliant. That would be. Tell, I do need to know what number would you want on the back for you, Tell?
Now that's a very good question. You all know I was up in Leeds yesterday. Yeah. I'm driving up to Leeds, and there was a Range Rover on my right-hand side. And I'm doing 70 like everybody else. And I'm just about maybe 10 or 15 miles short of the M62, which is the Cross Pennine motorway, which goes from Leeds across to Manchester and that area. And I've seen a load of people flashing this bloke in this car, you know, and I'm thinking, whacking big Range Rover. And then I looked at the number plate, and it had on it K7 KOP.
Mm-hmm.
So K7 Cop. Mm-hmm. So it's got to have been a Liverpool player.
Yeah.
And all I could think was 7 could be either Kevin Keegan or Kenny Dalglish. But everybody seemed to know this car, and they're all flashing him and waving to him. So there you go. If you get out, huh?
You'd want a number 7 then, yeah?
I don't know. Give me some time to think about it, because I did like.
Come back.
I did like.
Come back to me when you're ready. Raz has wanted number 3. Is that right, Raz? I've remembered that right, haven't I?
Yeah, it's my number.
Yeah,
it's my number.
And Alex wants number 7.
So and why have you chosen 29?
Because that's my birthday. That's my birthday, mate. Because it is. See, to me, that is the Enforcer. Bang, bring it. You know.
Yeah.
There's your winner.
I won't tell you any more about designs, but the designs will be coming out in the next couple of days, guys, and I'll send them to Alex and get his approval.
Yeah, we'll put on the merch store. You know, anyone.
Yeah.
As Taylor says, we could be outside the Emirates. Just wait.
Yeah.
Buy one, get one free.
Have me there going, buy one now. Get it.
I'll tell you a funny thing now. There's this guy who was at my daughter's school who has started something up in the I think it's the Clock End in the lower tier. It'd be about 17 or 18 now. And what they do is, because they can't sit next to each other because it just pop like which season ticket you've got, what they do is before the match, at half time and after the match, they all gather near a bar. There's plenty of bars. And what they do is they all cheer and shout and jump as one. So what you need to do is try and get the shirt into those guys. Because it'll be all over the internet. The Enforcer, yeah.
This could go global, guys. This could go global.
You could get signed up. You could get signed up to do the team talk. Get him in quick.
Do you know what it is, boys? I'm happy with cannon fodder. I'll stay here. I'm happy with where I am. You know what I mean?
You ain't going anywhere, mate.
Cheers.
All right, let's go back into the live chat just for the last time before we wrap up this one. Ashley D, my moderator for this evening, says, back in them days, there were only one substitution allowed. Back in them days.
Ashley, man, you're so funny, guy. You're so funny. Big up.
Hi, folks. Urban Ghosts. Welcome back, brother. Hope you're all right. One Ola says, if you can't clean a toilet, oh my goodness, where is this going to? If you can't clean a toilet that's been abused by our teammates, then you shouldn't be in the team. God,
Doris, now get your face mask on. This one's a rough one. This one's toxic.
get your marigolds on.
Yeah, it's radioactive.
Good evening, gentlemen. Young fans want to see football history, not learn it. But aren't they part and parcel of the same thing?
That's a fair point. No, I see what he's saying. That's a fair point. They wouldn't read about it. They've got to visualize it. Do you know what I mean? They wouldn't pick up a book and read it. It's got to be on YouTube, and it's got to come in sections with an advert every 5 minutes. Do you know what I mean? That's how this generation
my daughter, her friends actually, they watch this channel as well. So I'm hoping that's another generation that will understand about what's been done and how to support a team. But when I was a kid, the only information I had would have been match of the day or the big match as it was back then, and you're talking to me about it. Shoot.
Yeah.
My brother used to be on paper rounds, so we used to get Roy of the Rovers, if you remember.
Yeah. And Hot Shot Hamish and all that.
Even Superman, Malcolm McDonald had a storyline in Roy of the Rovers as well. So they try to simulate real life with animation or comics. So that was my kind of like grasp of trying to get something. Even my primary school, they took us to Wembley to see 2 university teams play at Wembley, and to me that was like the most, to actually go to where they actually played the FA Cup. That was like something else. That really was something else. And I told you about my history with my teacher, Miss Boydell, who she not met me, but she was a Man City player, a Man City fan, but she loved Charlie George. But when we're talking about women playing football, it seems to have taken an age, but really it's always been there. But her skills, you could put her in any team now.
Sorry, Raz. Could I also say, just for a comparison, it's also 50 years today since the first Women's FA Cup.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
So they share the same sort of date, which I think is impressive. So that backs you up again, Raz. Do you know what I mean? Women have been playing the FA Cup for 50 years, and I think it's brilliant.
Guys, I'll go back into live chat. Sorry, let me go back in live chat just for a moment. Ashley says, blimey, LTL's got Tom Baker's Doctor Who scarf on.
Easy, Ashley, because you could be the next one that's being interrogated.
Yeah. There's a fella under this table. He's in an awful mess. I'm going to have to get the carpet cleaners in. My carpet's a right mess.
Vanish.
So go on before we wrap up this one.
I was just going to say, over the years, there were lots of women that used to go to matches. And there was one lady, I'm pretty sure she used to inhabit the lower tier East Stand. And she had one of those shriek type voices. So everybody, when you're watching the match, she'd be behind you shrieking away. But yeah, I mean, I know there are lots of girls who follow the Arsenal. And when we went out to the Champions League final, when Arsenal got through against Barcelona, loads of us went out. Loads of girls went out. Wives went out. It was a real thing. So, and there are still. you know, it would be an idea if we could get a female person on to talk about Arsenal, and maybe a younger person. I know my son Michael watches this from time to time. You know, there's a new generation coming through. I've always, even when I was a young lad, I was always fascinated in the history, and I'd be standing around talking to people, and they'd be talking about some of the ex-players that used to play for us and the different goals they scored. So the one thing is, we're a club that has got a history, and a wonderful history. And if you want to be an Arsenal fan, you should always bow your head to Arsenal's history. We've got a great history, and long may it continue.
Here. A quick point. Oh, don't forget, they'll tell we've got Sharifa. Who's the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
lady.
Yeah.
Go check her channel out, guys. She's got a great channel. She comes up with loads of interesting facts. So if you want to sub to another Arsenal channel, check out Small Talk. Is it Arsenal Small Talk? That's
Arsenal Small Talk.
Yeah.
We're finished. We did the best that we could do, commemorating 50 years. 50 years. Oh my goodness, time has flown. Arsenal's double winning side, and I hope Jordy Armstrong's looking out thinking, "Oh, okay, Cannon Fire TV, guys, well done."
No, we're still on.
Thank you. All right, so that's it.
Two Forza.
Are you right, Des? Are you okay, Des?
Yeah. My wife thought you were finished, so she started talking to me.
You're in the old doghouse now, mate. You're in the doghouse.
I'm in stub, mate. Don't you worry about that. I'm in stub, mate. No, they're not finished yet. Oh, this hand is going to come and grab me in a minute, like you would grab that time, Alex. You know.
Your dinner's ready.
My dinner's in the dog, mate. Now I'm telling you. Right, Sam wants a T-shirt. My missus has just said, sorry, Alex, I know you're trying to shut it down, but my missus has just said she wants a T-shirt made, and she wants to be called Cannon Fodder Widow.
Cannon Fodder Widow.
Hello, Miss Enforcer. We'll sort you out.
Hello,
We'll sort you out. Mrs. Enforcer.
That's my lovely wife, Sam. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right, guys. Lovely jubbly. Ralph, thank you for coming back on this particular one.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me.
Yep.
Yeah, this boy is still looking at the match, and they just scored Liverpool, but Charlie George, no, actually Eddie Kelly will come to the rescue.
He tried to nip my girlfriend, you know.
Yeah, we heard about that. How come he's not under the table?
Let it go, Elton. Let it go.
Can I just say, Alex, thank you very much for having me, yeah? And this 1971 team would have got us to the final against Man United, no problem, no bother whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. Original Godfather, thank you for your wisdom and your words.
It's
much.
Been great talking about good times, but also showing the younger supporters that if we could adopt some of this never say die attitude and keep promoting our youth players, then the future could be really good, and we could be doing well this time 12 months.
Brilliant. If by chance you've been wondering what you've been listening to, well, you've been listening to Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans all.